Okay, hopefully you can see me. Will someone give me a wee shout if you can't?
I can see you fine, Carol.
Perfect, that's great. Hi everybody, I'm Carol Haire and I'm Principal Teacher at Broomlea Primary School and the DLO there too. Just want to say thank you very much for joining us this morning. No pressure to deliver a gem of a presentation, but I'm going to try and talk you through some of the things that we've been doing with Book Creator. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to share my screen. DLOL or not, this is still always very tricky. So I'm hoping that you can see my screen and my presentation, and then I will take you through. Brilliant, thanks very much. So, yeah, we're at Broomlea Primary in Glasgow, obviously. Our school is for primary 1 to 7. All our learners have complex additional support needs. Here they are, some of them. The majority of our pupils are non-verbal, so they require a lot of support with their communication. All of the children from primary 1 to primary 7 are working within the early level of Curriculum for Excellence, and they're likely to remain within that level for the whole time they're at Broomlea Primary, and some of them beyond that too. We are the ASN Primary Pilot School for the Connected Learning Project, so all our pupils now have their own iPad. As you can see, the purple ones there on the screen are the ones that were deployed to us. The children have been really using them well to start to engage and start to communicate. And we're trying to help them develop those skills and trying to be quite creative in what we do. Most of the children at our school have an ASD diagnosis, so autism is a big feature of our day at Broomlea. Some of the pupils also have profound and multiple difficulties. Many of our children have sensory processing issues, so the world is quite a difficult place for them to understand. And coupled with some of the behaviours that come with ASD, which are quite repetitive and sometimes quite unconventional, we find that a lot of our children just lack that curiosity to learn new things. They don't really see people as being very exciting, and their behaviour is quite unexpected at times until you get to know them quite well. They do have difficulties with communication. They don't naturally ask for what they need. They're good at problem solving and finding ways of getting what they need, but they find it really difficult to make choices. Choices are quite overwhelming for our children. And generally, their way of communicating is through their behaviour, and sometimes that can be quite challenging. So we try to support them to communicate more effectively. We use Makaton signing across the school. We use PECS, picture exchange communication systems. We use POD, just lots of alternative methods of communication to try and help our children say what they want to say. We are very aware that our learners do have something to communicate. They do want to make a choice and they're very clear about what they want. They just really haven't found a way to use their voices to tell us yet. So before our deployment, we knew our deployment was coming and we wanted to get things ready. And one of the apps that we looked at was Book Creator. We had some older iPads in school, and we still have some of those older iPads in school, but we started looking at Book Creator as a staff team and how we could maybe use that. And now that we've got our teacher iPads and now that we've got our pupil iPads, we use it regularly for learning and teaching. But obviously the theme this week is accessibility, and Book Creator is a really good app because there are lots of accessibility features that are built in directly to the app. So hopefully today I'll be able to take you through some of them, and for those of you who are new to Book Creator, maybe just show you a little bit about the steps of adding things to create content, and just to show you how we have increased engagement and attention from the children using this app. It's also really useful for markmaking and cause and effect. That's a difficult one for our children because they're very keen to make marks, but the implements that we sometimes use, the children are still a very early level of development, and so they tend to mouth a lot of items, so pens and crayons and pencils tend to end up in mouths, whereas the iPad, you don't need an implement, you just need your fingers, which is great. We've also created lots of books with video and audio content, which is really important for our children. They need to be cued in with music and they need to be able to look at things to help them to learn. The app's really good in helping us to develop receptive vocabulary. Our children are not using expressive vocabulary yet. Some of them aren't speaking yet, but we want to try and fill them with lots of receptive vocabulary so that when their little voices hopefully come, they have plenty to tell us and lots of ways to describe things. As I said earlier, choice is a difficult thing for our children. It's quite overwhelming, and we have to limit the choices that they can have in school just to help ease any frustration. So we do have a choice board app, which I'll talk a little bit about as part of the pilot programme, but Book Creator is another good way of creating choice boards. We also use it to support visual timetables. This has been really useful during lockdown when all our children are at home and our parents are trying to sort of structure and provide some routine to their day without all the printed visuals that we would use at school. So I can show you a little bit about that and just how we've shared what we've done with our families. We use Seesaw at Broomley, and Book Creator and Seesaw are very compatible. They work really nicely together. So I'm just going to come out of my presentation and take you into Book Creator. The first thing we started with at Broomley was, no surprise for those of you in our sector, is singing hands. Our children love singing hands. We love singing hands. I'm not a super fan at all. But we started off by, we wanted to make something that the children would engage with, and we knew that they liked music and we knew that they liked singing. So we started using singing hands videos, and we created little books on Book Creator. One of the things that we were quite excited about when we got our deployment of teacher iPads was that once we'd made a book on Book Creator, we could airdrop it to everybody else's iPads as well. And we could obviously now do that with the pupil iPads, something still quite magical about airdrop. So this is the Singing Hands book that we made to start with. Anything that's in your camera roll can go into a Book Creator. So quite often I just take lots of screenshots of things that I find online, pictures and videos, just to add in. You don't need to necessarily have everything as the original picture. Excuse me. We add videos here, so I'm just going to show you how to add things. You'll see up at the top there, there's just a little plus button. It's quite an intuitive app to use, quite easy. And as I say, you can add anything from your camera roll. The first thing that everybody seems to want to do is to add something from the camera. You don't really want to do that unless you actually want to take a picture at the time you're looking for photos. But as you can see, you can add text, you can add sound, which I'll talk about later. But we're going to choose a photo, and that's obviously where my videos are as well, because they go straight into the camera roll. So I'm going to choose, and I'm trying to remember which one is the right one to choose. I'm going to choose this one here and say that I want to use that video. And it will just pop it in and import it in. Now that's obviously row, row, row the boat, but I want the children to have a better idea of a visual that goes along with that. So there's a little information button, a little inspector button up here at the top, and you can change what you want on the front of that. So I want to change it to row, row, row your boat, so that then that symbol is there ready for the children, and I can resize it and just make it fit in to the right place. What we found really useful is to lock things in place. Once the children start using Book Creator, they like to move things all around. So it's a good idea just to lock everything as you put them in. When that plays, I'm hoping this will work on screen. You might not be able to hear it, but you can obviously make it bigger and make it fill the full screen as well. Yeah, you can't hear it, but that's okay. So that was the first kind of board that we started with. We chose songs that the children liked. We shared it around and we used it in our classes. And that sort of led on to more kind of themed singing Book Creator books. We had ones with action songs and body songs and songs about feelings, using them to just teach lots of different things and to support, try to engage the children and get them excited about wanting to tap on the iPad and make a choice. I mentioned earlier that our children find mark making a bit challenging because we quite like to put an awful lot of things in our mouth at times. So Book Creator is quite useful for making marks as well. There are lots of things that you can do, and because you're putting them on little pages, it's quite nice to be able to build up a progression of the children's work, really. At Broomley, we don't have an awful lot of written work. The children are not at that level at all. So we capture a lot of the children's learning with photographs. But Book Creator is really nice because you can just keep adding pages and adding pages. And so you can see the children's progression in perhaps their mark making skills. So to do that, we're going to this time add a pen. And up here at the top, you can change the pen to any colour, but for us, there's lots of nice, exciting pens here at the bottom with lovely rainbow colours. So again, you know, for some of our children, just putting their hand on the screen and seeing that cause and effect, making something happen. Quite often with apps, you just get, if you touch the screen, you just get sort of one finger touching. But this is quite good because you can put kind of your whole hand on and make lots of marks. You can also add, which our children quite like, you can add lots of little emojis and things to your work and be happy about things that you've done. So you can start with that kind of thing. You can lock that in place. That's an example of the children's work right at the very early stages. But obviously you can move on from that. You can put templates on in the background just by adding a photograph. So that's just a photograph that's been added in with the add button. And then on top of that, you can choose your pen. So for children that are maybe a bit more adept with their mark making, you can then start to just work on a bit more of a kind of fine motor skills. And it will just, as I say, you can just lock that into place and that saves the children's work. So that's been quite a nice way for mark making for some children who maybe find that hard with a pencil or paint or anything like that. So that's mark making. I'm just going to have a little look now at some of the other books that we've made. Stories are really good to keep on this. Now that we've got some Apple TV in our classrooms as well, it's quite good to be able to cast this up to the screen and for the children to have that to look at as you're telling a story. Our children's attention span is very short. Sometimes I'm not very exciting as I'm telling a story. I try my best, but the children are quite captured by sort of cartoons and videos. It's something that they enjoy. We obviously don't want them to be watching YouTube all day long. So if we can make our kind of own learning and teaching version of something exciting up on the screen, that's always helpful. A Trip to the Park is a Makaton signed book, which we've used. There's a whole series of them. And we've just taken photographs of the pictures in the book, which I'm going to show you a good way to do that too. But we can just add in pictures. You can add in videos, as you saw earlier. So there's a wee video of me signing as part of the story, which you won't be able to hear, but I'm saying, Mum said, today we're going to the park. We've added in the Makaton sign for park, and we've got some words there as well, just that key word to reinforce park. To get the photographs in and to get them nice and flat so that it doesn't look like you've taken them out of a book, there's a really nice app. So I'm just going to come out of Book Creator just for a second and open up this app called Office Lens. It's the little one down there at the bottom with the L on it. It's on the deployed iPads and it's a free app, which is great. So this might be a bit wobbly, but I'm going to give it a try. This is a book that I've been using for home learning. Try and get it all in. So it puts a sort of border around the book or the picture that you're taking. Don't need to worry about being too accurate because you can then change what it looks like by cropping. And it flattens out the book and flattens out any pictures, and you can take the spine away, do lots of bits and pieces, and then it puts it in as a nice flat picture, so it looks like it's just a photograph that's been added. Okay, if you didn't want to have all the bits of the book and you just like the picture, again, you can just drag these little corners down. So this is a great little app. I'm not going to be able to crop out all those words, I don't think. But it's a great little app for creating content in Book Creator. As you see, it makes it nice and flat. When you've finished with it, you just add it into your photo library, so it's ready to go for Book Creator. So going back to the trip to the park, we add in the photographs just by adding a photo. You add in your video. If you want to add text, let me just take this text away. It's just the same process. You add your text, you type whatever word it is you want to have. Don't want the capital letter there, sorry. You can move it around, place it wherever you want on the page. The little information button there again gives you the option to change the font, to change the size, to change the colour, and just move it around and put it on the page wherever you want it before you lock it into place. So you can add photograph, you can add video, you can add text, all these things can be added in. One of the nice things that you can do on Book Creator is you can add some audio. So you'll notice here up next to the slide there's a little sound button. Our children like things to be named quite a lot. They'll take your hand and point to things. They're desperate to know what things are. And that's great to be able to say to the children what something is. But when you've been asked maybe about 43 times in the last 10 minutes, it does test your patience. But iPads are quite good at being very patient all the time. So you can add a sound button if there was particular vocabulary that you wanted to reinforce with the children. If you were doing a topic on the park, and I wanted the children to learn that this is called a slide and this is called a roundabout, and that's something that the children can access independently too. Quite nice to be able to do nice busy pictures like this. So to add a sound button, again, you're back to add, we're adding the sound, and it'll just record your voice. And that's quite nice because although Book Creator has a read to me feature built into it, the voices sometimes don't really sound like the voices that we have. So it's quite nice to be able to put your own voice onto things. So I'm just going to record my dulcet tones. Roundabout. And that's worked, okay. And then I can put that right next to the roundabout and lock it in place. Now, because I'm hooked up with a wire to the PC, I don't think you'll be able to hear this, but it means that the children can then just tap on those sound buttons and it will say the words to them. I can hear it here, but you'll not be able to hear it through Teams. It's saying my voice, it's saying roundabout. So you can add those sound buttons in anywhere that you think there's some vocabulary that's, that you want to reinforce. So that's quite good to be able to do with picture books, developing that vocabulary, and again, just a nice simple feature that's already built into Book Creator. Another way of being able to add audio in for children to hear and to develop that vocabulary is by putting audio descriptions onto the pictures that you add in. So I've just set up this little book. Snack time is obviously a favourite in most schools, but definitely at Broomlea. It's very motivating for the children and a good way for us to try and develop communication for the children to ask for things that they like. It's quite nice practice to have a sound button next to text. Quite often a lot of our children can read text, but we've not really seen them demonstrate that very often. So it's quite good to have the text and then the option to press a little sound button and be able to say what the text says. So you can, obviously the child can read, it's snack time if they do have some reading skills, but if they're not sure, there's always that little button to press. We would always support everything with visuals, so I would add into this a little picture of snack. So there's lots of options there then for a child looking at this to know what this book is all about. There's text for any child who can read some text. There's a sound button that can be pressed if the child prefers an audio input, and also there's a symbol that would correlate with the symbols that we have on our visual timetables and on our little lanyards that we wear around the school. I've already added 3 of our snacks in, so I'm just going to show you how to add the audio description to another snack. So I'm going to hopefully put another little snack hiding in here. I have breadsticks, which is not often we get something so fancy at Broomlea. But once you've added it in, if you go into that little information button again, there's a section there that says alternative text for image. So you can type into there what it is. And it means then that when you go to the Read to Me feature, it will tell the child what each of the different things are. It will read it to them. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to hear the audio, but I'll show you how the Read to Me feature works. So there's a little play arrow up at the top there, and you'll see there, Read to Me. So on my iPad, what's happening now is that the iPad is saying apple, banana, yogurt, breadsticks. It's reading what the text is, what the alternative text is that I've put in. So again, it's just another way of giving that accessibility to children who need a little bit extra support. It's quite a good little feature to have. You can change the voices. I've got it set to English Martha. She's quite posh. Ireland Moira's quite nice too. She sounds obviously Irish, but maybe a little bit Scottish. It doesn't translate into different languages, but it does give you the accent of the people. So I believe that Call Scotland have some nice Scottish accents, but I don't think they've been put into Book Creator yet. I think they're in other features, so hopefully that will come. Keep campaigning for that. So that's a good way of just using that extra feature just to support accessibility. The other thing then that we do at Broomley is we help the children to make choices. We do have a lovely app called Choice Board Creator. You see it down here at the bottom of my iPad here. This is part of the pilot for connected learning, so we've been using it for quite a while. It's not yet rolled out to all of the iPads. Hopefully it will come soon. There's obviously lots of things that have to go through in processing that. But if you have iPads that are not part of the deployment, if you have some iPads in school, it is a free app, which is really good. I did a session for Call Scotland on using Choice Board Creator, so I can post the link to that if anybody's interested in seeing how to use it. But if you don't have access to that, you still can use Book Creator for making choices, choices about things that we do during the day. So again, we've got it's time to play. I would add a little sound button into that. I would add a little visual in just to show this is playtime and what choices we're going to make. And I've copied this straight from my Choice Board Creator. This is my lovely class, my primary 6s and 7s. So in the Choice Board Creator, it'll ask the children, who do you want to play with? They tap on the picture and it says that child's name. Our children don't see other children and don't see people as being particularly exciting. Things are much more exciting. And so we're trying to teach the children that people are fun and that interaction is fun because their first choice would tend to be an item, a thing, an object. It wouldn't always be a person. But we do obviously want to choose things to do and to interact together. So these are 4 of the games that we would play in class. So we would pick someone to play it with, and then we would pick the game. To add the sound buttons to this to make it into a choice board, you just can do it in a slightly different way. So you can add the sound. So I would say crocodile dentist. Use my recording, and what I want to do with it is put it on top of the square and put it on top of the image, and then I want to make it invisible in iBooks. Now it doesn't make it completely invisible on Book Creator. It does if you import this into an iBook, but it does mean that you can, just going to lock that in place. It does mean that it's sort of greyed out, so you can still see the image that's with it. And it means that if you have this with one-to-one with a child, or you're working in a small group and you want the children to reach out and tap to make a choice, that when they tap on it, the sound button will still play and it's not obscuring what's happening round about. So you can add one to each of the choices. So it does help to make a choice board. We like Choice Board Creator better because it's a bit easier to use, but there are still ways of using Book Creator to make those choices for the children. Another thing that we have looked at, obviously I've been talking about how we support things with visuals, so Book Creator is perfect for this. We've been sharing a lot of work on Seesaw, some ideas for learning with the children, and trying to help parents to support the understanding of a bit of a routine and a bit of structure which our children respond well to. So one of the things that we found quite helpful, we use in school a lot, is a first, next and then board, which I'm sure is not just used in schools like ours. But what we can do is we can have a background added and then add anything from the camera roll. So our parents are able to use this at home. You can get a Book Creator Lite for free, which allows you to create one book. And we recommended this to some of our parents because the only book then that you really need is this choice board. You can then add in your background, which is your choosing board. And then it can be really customised quite well. It doesn't need to necessarily be photos or images that you add or symbols. It can be photographs of your own toys at home, what your bedroom looks like, or the place that you go for your daily walk. So you can add photos to it that mean something to the children. So I've just got some symbols, but first we're going to watch TV. Next, you're going to play with your trucks and your cars. But that could be a photograph of the child's trucks and cars that the parent has taken or that we've taken in school, something that's a bit more specific to them. and then we're going to go and play outside in the garden, or we're going to go and play outside at school. And so those can be changed back and forward. And for parents that have this and have downloaded this at home, just having that one book just means that they can work with the child to kind of structure a little chunks of the day. The board that I added was just a screenshot from, I found it online. So there's lots of obviously things, and you just take a screenshot of what you're doing. The last thing to show you is a book that we made just before lockdown, all about washing your hands. We used some of the lovely Twinkle resources. We just added them in and created How to Wash Your Hands book. We just added the photographs in. Then we added in a little video, which came from CBBC Newsround. So that was able to be added in, as I say, just adding any photographs, adding any videos that you had. We then added some of our board maker symbols just to go through step by step what the child was to do. Again, that's something that you can put on Read to Me, and it will read the words to the child. Turn the tap on. Wet your hands. You can't hear it, sorry, but it just takes them through and it highlights the words as they're going along. So that's quite a nice feature. And then we added a lovely video at the end of the Singing Walrus, which was a bit of a favourite, and a little theme tune to wash your hands. Now, we obviously wanted to share that at home. We wanted to be able to send that to parents. We do that using Seesaw. So right down at the bottom, underneath each book, there's a little library shelf. There's a little share sheet. And when you tap on that, you can export it as a video. And we would save the video, it'll export it, and it'll save it into your camera roll. And then that could be shared if you're using Seesaw or you're sending an email or however you're communicating with parents at the moment. That's then ready to be shared. So anything that we've made on Book Creator can be turned into a video, and that's quite helpful to have that kind of connection between home and school. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour through Book Creator. I'm happy to try and answer any questions. I'm just going to try and stop sharing my screen if I can work out how to do that.
Carol, that was super. Thanks so much. I'm new to Book Creator, so that's been fantastic. There's a couple of questions here just with regards to the icon that you were. How did you get the menu with the lockup on the image? Andrews came back and said if you tap on it, but it seems to be that 4 circles at each corner. So I'm just wondering if you're able to help with that.
Put my screen back on, hopefully. I think I opened the wrong thing, sorry. So I think maybe you can still see my screen there. So if I add a photograph in, and just choose their snack. So if you can see there's the 4 blue dots around the outside, all you do is tap it and hold it, and you get a little menu that pops up. We'll lock it into place and you'll round, and then you can just unlock it again if you want to resize it or do anything with it.
That's brilliant. I think that's answered that question there for us. So that was a super. Just now I'm going to put in the chat section the form for you to complete for today's session that will then link in with CPD Manager. And if I can just remind you that on Monday we have our Apple Monday, and this week it will be focusing in on iMovie at 3 o'clock under the Apple Mondays channel. There's another question just popping up here. The best way of sharing Book Creator on Teams, Carol? I don't know if you're able to answer that.
I don't know off the top of my head, but what I will do is I'll have a wee play about with it and I'll post something on Teams later today. Is that okay?
That's lovely. Thanks very much. We've got a couple of people responding anyway. Okay, thanks everyone for joining us today, and have a lovely Thursday, and we'll speak to you next week for coffee breaks. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.